Good morning, and we're back on the general licence again. This is Ian Summerall for Country Sports TV. I've been having a look at the general licence, and I've been having a look at the European Bird Directive. You have to go and read both. We have GL31 for shooting pigeons. We've got GL26 for carrion crows. We have no general licence for rooks, jackdaws or magpies. So they cannot be shot, and the numbers or the populations cannot be limited. So the damage they can do is going to be that much greater. We know, but you've seen my last video, that corvids and magpies take the songbirds. They destroy the eggs and they destroy the young. Fact. Now, if you take the European Bird Directive, which I don't like, I don't think that any foreign power should rule over us, part of our constitution. But let's set that aside for a second. Our government is working to the British Bird Directive, or the European Bird Directive. The Bird Directive says that there's a number of species, 198, that are protected. There are 26 birds that can be hunted. And it says we've got to take account, the Bird Directive we've got to take account of the bird's breeding season. So if you've got pheasants or wildfowl, we have a season for that. Therefore, that's why they haven't been touched in the Wildlife and Countryside Act. But the pigeon, crows and corvids, magpies, jackdaws, etc., they were birds that could be shot at any time. The Bird Directive doesn't stop you shooting them. They're on the list. It just says you've got to take account of their breeding season. So, I would argue that the general licence was only needed to shoot certain birds within their breeding season. Now, some of the birds, it says that you can take nests and eggs, and the pigeon is on that list. So our government was right in its own right mind to issue a licence for us to take eggs and nests of wood pigeons. That's within the Bird Directive. But it did not need to issue a general licence to shoot pigeons. It may have needed a general licence to shoot corvids in May, June, March, April, May maybe, when they were breeding, because most of the rookeries come out around the second week in May, all according on weather conditions. I can remember going out roost shooting on the second week of May every year when I was young on the estate here with the keeper. They had the guns in the pheasant shoot were allowed to do pest control during the summer, and I was invited along if they had a spare gun, and they would normally go out in 3s and 4s. They would do squirrels, grey squirrels that is, in February, and they would poke the drays, push the squirrels out and shoot them to keep the numbers down to stop the damage on trees. Second week in May, they would go out and they would roost shoot the rooks in the rookery. As the young came out on the branches, the parents would be flying overhead and we would devastate the population. Therefore, later on in the summer, when the grain was up, and we were having high grain then, it's not the short grain they grow now that hardly blows over, it was 3 foot high, and that would easily blow over. And crows and pigeons would devastate it. And we would knock the numbers down before they had a go. And we would have a good go at them. And we would half the number on a rookery. And that would stop the damage for the forthcoming harvest. Now, the Bird Directive doesn't say that you can't hunt. It doesn't protect the birds per se. It says that they can be hunted. Our general license goes over and above the Bird Directive. It's not an EU directive that we have this general license in this manner, which is what we've been led to believe. I think that this is anti-shooting, anti-us, and it's been done by the so-called conservationists, the bird-loving twitchers, if you want to call them that, and the civil servants. It is draconian. The general license is draconian. It is far above the legislation that was ever needed by the European Bird Directive. Now, I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video to the European Bird Directive. All read it yourself and all come up to your own conclusions. I want to start the argument going that we don't need the general license. And if a general license is issued, it should only be issued for egg and nest destruction. Now, we need to get this sorted, and quickly. It could be argued, and I would make a strong case for this, reading the Bird Directive, it says that nation states have to maintain a bird population. So, if you've got birds that are protected, which would have been Article 1, which is also in our Wildlife and Countryside Act, which are protected, songbirds, blackbirds, robins, etc., then the nation state has to maintain a population. We've got to maintain biodiversity, they call it. Now, if we revoke the general license and stop the culling of corvids, crows, magpies, jackdaws, etc., their numbers increase, the damage on the songbird population will be greater. Fact. If we are not maintaining the songbird population, which are protected species, we are in breach of the EU Bird Directive. Who's mentioned that? Who's talking about that? So all this, oh, it was issued illegally, and revoking it has done more damage than if we left it in place. Because my argument is that they are birds that can be hunted under the Bird Directive, and that by revoking the license you've allowed the number to grow, therefore you've created more damage to the population of the birds that are protected. Anyway, please read the documents. Please argue with me. Please prove me wrong or right. But we've got to have this discussion. We cannot rely on our shooting organisations. We've seen what the shooting organisations do when we have the lead ban. If it wasn't for the Countryside Alliance, we would have been looking at a total lead ban today. Anyway, this is Ian Summerall, Country Sports TV, trying to create an honest debate. And if anybody wants to come on here, I can record a Skype interview. If anybody wants to come on here and argue with me, please let me know, and I'd gladly do a Skype interview with you so that we can explain these things. This is only my interpretation of it. We have to have the debate, and an honest debate. Anyway, this is Ian Summerall, a gunsmith, keen pigeon shooter, and I'm going back in the workshop now. Bye.